you everybody for coming to this talk today. Appreciate it. So, is that me? Cool. I might just do it from down here. Yeah, just want to kick things off and welcome Lani, Silleman, Georgie, Scoular, Samantha, and Kelsey Rea.
We're on. Okay, let's get into it, ladies. Maybe do a little quick introduction. Starting off strong with Kelsey. I'll introduce myself. I'm Lani from Cliqued Digital. Nice to meet you all.
Hi, I'm Kelsey. I am the head of e-commerce for beauty tech innovator GHD.
Hi, I'm Georgie, and I'm a digital marketing executive at Boardriders, and I take care of all of our paid media channels apart from search. So yeah.
And hi, I'm Sam. I'm the digital director at the Age Collective, so look after all performance marketing and e-com.
Amazing. First topic, the metrics that actually matter beyond ROAS. Let's break it down because I know a lot of people in the room will probably still be focusing on ROAS, and I know we've had conversations about it. ROAS doesn't account for your returns, your shipping, or your COGS. So how has your reporting evolved to ensure that you're looking at net profit rather than not just your top line revenue? So what are the metrics that we're actually focusing on?
Yeah, I can go. So I always think it's really important to know what campaigns you're running and what metrics are important for them, because at the end of the day, not every campaign is designed to drive actual revenue at that time. Sometimes they're meant to influence or to bring in new customers. So knowing what's important at what time and how everything works together. So if we run a campaign for snow and then 2 weeks later we see snow searches spike, we know that that worked. So it's just like understanding the whole ecosystem, and ROAS can be important for a quick health check, but it can't be everything, and you can't do all of it all the time.
Yeah. I would completely agree. I think I have a fundamental issue with ROAS, and I think that if you think about it from the main issue is that it's too surface level. If you just measure the top line metrics and specifically out of channels and look at your marketing efficiency ratio, you will start to reward the channels that are essentially bringing your returning customers. So the way that we positioned ourselves at Age and doing this very differently is that your ROAS or your MER metric should be directly tied to your P&L. So really breaking it down. In our business, we have around 12 different lines on the P&L across regions and across brands. And if you just look at that MER, ROAS or cost to sell metric, you're going to be essentially targeting the same customers over and over again. It is I guess, a standard question that if your ROAS is too low, then you spent too much. If your ROAS is too high, then you've overspent, or vice versa. And I think that the only way that we've been able to get around this is to really take a contribution margin perspective to this in terms of your product, your brands, and your collections. So we have, I said to the girls earlier, I feel like I'm a part-time analyst or accountant and part-time e-com trading team leader, because you really have to break down some of these acronyms with your finance team to understand how you unlock the spend, and also how, conversely, how you cap the spend. So we've taken that metric one step further, and we essentially just negated it from the metrics that we look at. They're fine, essentially, from a channel perspective, and we see it as being the steering wheel to where we're going, but not necessarily the destination. And I still think it's a constant question that comes up around, why didn't you spend? Why did you cap it? Why didn't you do this and do that? But you can't trust it. You can't trust the channels anymore. You can only really trust your first-party data. So yeah, from our perspective, we've really come up with a framework that supports all of those cost of good metrics, margin, returns in the mix and delivery, to come up with a framework that supports our team to unlock new revenue.
Could you talk a little bit more into that framework, or what platforms or tools you're using to track those metrics?
Yeah. From a really tactical level, I could talk about this forever. Essentially, we came back to the fact that we cannot measure incrementality at the moment in the way we're working, and I think lots of brands are really struggling to understand what that extra spend does. If you sit down, like I said, at the end of the month and you look at the P&L, you may have spent more, but your top line revenue is not reflecting that, because there's so many other things in the mix. We've called it essentially a product lab, where we've taken all of our products and looked at the margin per product and the allowable CPA we can spend, and we started to essentially build columns and rows in a spreadsheet. What products are coming in? How much do they across the business. When we add in returns or suggested returns right into that, what is the true cost of that product or the true margin potential? Off the back of that, you can work it two ways. Either you're told you can spend $1 million and you work it back. If you know that one product's going to drive you 2% of your margin, you should be spending more money on that one product. The difficulty is that the channels often will reward broader campaigns, and so I think you need to take that control back in your hands to be able to go to the business and say, we're spending money on these products and this is the revenue they're generating and this is that contribution margin. We built that tool ourselves and found it really useful, but essentially found it too manual, and then we went on the hunt to find a partner, and we've been using Profit Peak for a little while now and seen amazing success in just understanding where we're not spending and where that customer is actually coming through from and what that margin looks like.
Yeah, I think something that's really interesting, important to note, because I know I speak to a lot of smaller businesses that don't know how much they can spend acquiring a customer. That's a metric that you will look at.
I think what's really interesting about that as well is, and especially for GHD, where we're known for stylers. We've been in that industry for 25 years. We know what it costs to acquire a styler customer. But if we have a think about how we're actually going to grow the brand long term, it's going to take a significantly higher CPA to obtain that customer in a category that we don't have the penetration in. So kind of taking a step back and realizing what the benchmarks will be for each of those categories as well. In the same way for age, I think like once you have that customer, you may not be profitable on the first transaction. But once you have obtained that customer and you have that retention rate as well, it's getting them to buy into the brand and those other multi-categories as well.
Absolutely. Now, with every platform trying to claim the sale, how do you determine the source of truth, and when do you decide where to put your next dollar?
I can talk to that. So we have like an agreed source of truth with GA4. Everyone sort of says that's what we're going to go off. But it's also then educating everyone around that. So I will speak to my platform metrics, and I work with the team at Amplify to look at those. And then we, will say in meetings, this email did this much last click and this much influenced. And it's understanding that GA4 is great and looks at the website, but it is a Google product and search is so lower funnel that is going to be overrepresented. But how does everything work together? Like, what's the story? Because you're telling a story through your marketing, so how's the customer taking that story in as well? Yeah.
I think it's really an interesting one. I worked at a brand a few years ago, and I had a very big challenge to prove that Meta was working. And I think when you look at GA4 and last click attribution, now data-driven attribution, it was really easy to see that Meta wasn't doing it. But it was a luxury fashion purchase. The time to convert may have been more than 90 days, and that's just never going to be evident in the attribution window. So I think it's quite a bold statement, but they're like, turn it off. And I guarantee you that you'll feel it eventually. So I think there's that trust that inherently there are multiple touch points in the customer journey, and that might be Google, Meta, Pinterest, whatever that might be, but they do really work in unison. We've had some really early success at GHD with MMM so far.
For those in the room that don't know what that means.
Marketing mix modelling. So it's basically a statistical analysis pulling in all of your data points and using statistics that will ascertain where you should be investing your marketing spend. It can be, I guess, quite expensive, so it's good to work out how frequently you run that as well. So we're looking at doing that quarterly for GHD, which is really exciting. But I think it's also taking the results with a grain of salt. I've had friends and colleagues that have ran MMM previously, and it's like, chuck it all in PMAX, and we know that that's perhaps not exactly the answer. So it sounds like you've had some similar experiences.
No. It's just like when we talk about, we're running an awareness campaign, then 2 weeks later something goes off, and it's like, because it all works together. We're telling a story. You need how many touch points? Like, I said 7, and you were like, no, it's 31 now.
Yeah, it was 31 for one brand. Like, it's different for everyone, but I think a couple of years ago it was 7 to 8. Now the average is like
30 or something.
Yeah. It's
I don't want to think
the
about
touch
that.
points. So you think about it. And what was the last thing you bought? And how many touch points did you have before you bought it? Yeah.
I'm a conversion killer. I look at things way too much. I think we're very similar. We're not quite there in terms of the marketing mix modelling just yet, but I think it all just comes down to the objectives of each channels. I always say my dream is to turn everything off and see what happens. We can't afford to do that, and most brands can't afford to do that, but it just goes down to that thought again in terms of the ROAS. If you are surface level, you are not doing the right thing. You can never step away from execution completely. You can't ever be just strategic. The channels are moving on so quickly. Every day there's a new campaign that's being launched. Advantage Plus, this, that and the other, all these buzzwords about velocity, diversity in content, X, Y and Z. And I think if you're not close enough to those metrics and you can't push your team or your agency enough to tell you what does that actually mean, I think a lot of people, that word incrementality, people they can't answer it. Like, what is that? What is it driving incrementally? And I think you can't always blame your agency. You have to come back to yourself. What's the role of that channel doing, and what's the expectation? You can't just turn something off, or if you do, maybe that's the right decision, but what influence does that have longer term? Because we're all in the game of building brands and selling products. So it kind of goes hand in hand for us. And we were saying earlier, like, our pet peeve is we love trading daily. It's great, and there are times, but making really quick knee-jerk decisions based on a day and a point in time is getting in a really risky space now if you're going to be pulling back or going in. If we have a really high day of returns, like, you can't be pulling back on ad spend on that day, for example, and that's not necessarily a new school of thought, but I think a lot of brands are still in that mindset of just really managing cash flow and are trying to work out, again, what is incremental and what's the role of the channels. And these guys spoke about last click and first click. Hopefully the paid team can't just be looking at the paid channels. You need to be looking at the returning channels. So we actually will map out what our returning channels are going to be doing on those days and what we can afford to spend from a new perspective. You can't just look holistically anymore at GA4 and just be like, this is where they're coming and this is where they're shopping.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, for our brands, we have wholesale, retail, e-com, and I can't measure on any platform how many extra people walked into one of our stores and asked for a product, but we can sort of say, hey, is this, in our brand meetings, hey, is this going better? Hey, is that going better? But we do live, like, in a online and offline world. Like, people still want to go touch, feel, try the product before they buy, especially if they're investing more money into something like a wetsuit or a snowsuit. So it's kind of understanding all of it together.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about channel sprawl and discipline. Can you just talk us through quickly how many active paid channels each of your brands are currently running? Maybe with you, Kels, first.
I think we have about 8.
Could you talk through them?
So we have Meta, Google, Pinterest, TikTok, BVOD,
Affiliates.
YouTube and programmatic.
Yeah. Georgie?
Thanks, Megan.
So working at Boardriders, we have what feels like 1,000 brands, but I think it's about 12 or maybe less. They come and go. So each brand has a different amount of channels depending on their budget and depending on who their target audience is. So recently we introduced Pinterest, and it works really well for some of our brands, like our female-led brands, Roxy, Billabong Women's, but not so much for our male-led brands. And yeah, I think the max channels we have is probably about 8 or 9, and then some of the smaller brands might only have 1 or 2. So it does just depend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meta, Google, TikTok,
Pinterest, affiliates, 9 Now, Linkbee, you name it, we'll try it.
Okay.
It's exactly the same. We're not on 9 Now. I actually didn't ask you guys earlier, but I wondered if anyone did the OpenAI pilot. Because we were going to dabble in some testing with ChatGPT ads. Did you do any?
We haven't yet, but please report back.
That'll be the next one to add. Okay, what was the last channel that you added into the mix, and what was the green light metric that you were told it was time to scale?
So yeah, we've been trialing 9 Now for when it makes sense and with the brands. So we had some good use cases with Surf, Dive and Ski Swim Fit Guide, and we targeted young females who are watching reality TV. Felt like perfect brand alignment. Same with one of our surfers, Kihu. He is a Maori surfer from New Zealand, and we had the Pacific Nations Rugby League Championship, and we were like, perfect brand alignment again. Also, we introduced Pinterest, as I said, for our brands, and we've just seen it work, and we have seen some brand struggles with it. So, like, it's finding the right mix for your brands. Like, not everyone needs to be everywhere. but you just need to be where your customer's going to be.
And metrics-wise on those platforms, what are you looking for that determines whether it's successful to keep scaling it?
Again, it kind of depends on what the goal is. So if it's brand awareness, I want to know how many people I reach and how much it costs me. But then if I'm looking at a conversion campaign, I want to know how much money I made. And I want to know, how many new customers and what was, I know we're not supposed to say return, but like that's a quick metric for me to just be like, yay or nay, yes or no.
Yeah, but I like what you said as well. It depends on what the actual focus is.
Or if you get the returning metric through, it's an indication that channel is an overlap of another one. So it could be an early read that you don't, that the channel discipline isn't correct potentially. Like, are you just paying in two different places? Maybe that's paying off in your attribution strategy, but for us will be new is the primary one for us. I mean, TikTok is obviously everyone's, it's not necessarily a new one. We've also been in the offline space playing around with more like out of home and trams and just more traditional mediums, as well as most recently a partnership with Vogue where it's just a very different angle in terms of a cost up front, a CPM model. So just trying to get that, tangible outcome in terms of a paid input that we can track maybe through impact or through doing a cross collaboration with a paid partnership, whether it's in boosting. So I guess to be clear, some like more not necessarily the new things. TikTok's been around for obviously a while, but just to be kind of spreading that across channels where we have offline and online.
On the flip side, in a world where we're told to be absolutely everywhere, how do you protect your team from resource dilution? Is it better to dominate one or two channels, or is it important for you to maintain a presence across everything?
I think it can be really tricky. I think if you spread yourself too thin and you're not showing up for your customer in the right way, it's just not going to be the right move. I think in previous roles as well, we've tried, being able to tap into TikTok and utilize what we have from a creative standpoint for meta ads, and it's just not the same platform. So I think there's definitely some efficiencies that you can gain from a content perspective, but ultimately you need to show up in the right way for your consumer. That is relevant for that platform too, otherwise it's just not going to work. And I think if you're not showing up in a really meaningful way, you're just not going to get the cut through for that particular channel.
Are there any channels that you've cut recently and why?
I don't know, I don't think so. I think it goes up and down. Like obviously some months we've got bigger targets and we probably will have bigger budgets, so we might add something in. But other months it's a bit quieter, and if the team are got a lot on and they can't fulfill that, there's no point in being like, actually we need 20 times what you're already doing, and they're like, well, that's not possible. So it's a balance.
You spoke about the 9 Now ads. Who here actually knows what 9 Now ads are? Okay, a few. Maybe you just say what that was, because that's a perfect example of when you might be using it seasonal to different shows.
So we just wanted to give it a go, and it's just like, if you're like me, I was saying to these guys, my TV's not actually connected to the aerial or the satellite. Don't do that. It's just connected to the Wi-Fi, so we can't watch live TV. So it's kind of just a cheaper way of advertising on TV, and it was like really exciting to be like, oh, it's kind of a TV ad.
And you can get really specific with the targeting.
The targeting is very cool too, because we were saying how you can be very niche in terms of who you're targeting. We've done the same for Married at First Sight for GHD, and you're driving a very highly qualified customer through that segmentation as well.
I always try and think of what aligns with what. It's like, I was like, oh, should we do Fulcrum Workwear on the block? Does that work? Are you then going to be like, I'm going to do my home reno project?
Especially with the workwear range.
Yeah.
In terms of what channels you go into, I'm a bit mental about this actually, because I feel so passionately about the cost of involvement of you doing it and then the cost that you might get back. And so, or like return on investment and return on involvement. So using ROI in two different ways. And I once tracked the life cycle or the journey of an asset from start to end in the business around like you shoot it, you resize it, you get it to the right spec, you do the copy, you do the URL. Hopefully you're not doing a traditional media brief to your agency. Hopefully there's another way of working. You're not burning all those time. Then you get the asset back. Then you put it in a PowerPoint. Then you go to a trade meeting. Then you go to a content meeting. By the time you get to the end, that one asset for one TikTok video has gone through hours and hours and hours and like 10 people. Hopefully it hasn't, but I have seen instances in previous roles where that has happened. It goes up, you've got $100 to spend, and then someone pulls it after 5 days. And not only is that degrading for the person running it, there's no strategy behind it. So I feel like it's rarely in the media plan disappointment, or it's more in the kind of, why are you doing it? What are you doing? How are you doing it? And is it actually worthwhile? And not having such a knee-jerk reaction to something. So, yeah, it shouldn't be that hard.
So maybe it's not actually a metric in the digital landscape. It's more of an internal, how much time and resources is going towards that channel. Is it worth it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about aligning brand, performance, and CX. Friction often happens when the team is making the ads. When the team making the ads isn't actually talking to the team managing the website. What is the most effective way you've found to get brand, performance, and customer experience all on the same page?
I think you fundamentally just have to have the same shared KPIs. Each of those departments or sub-departments operate quite differently, and of course they're going to have their independent KPIs, but everyone needs that North Star, and I think aligning the teams and making sure that they're all focused on what is the actual objective here, and what are we all chasing towards. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I would say we have meetings with all of our brand teams and everyone that works in that team. And I think it's everyone's job to educate each other on what's important for you and why. So for me, it's important that the ad that I'm putting up on Meta, the person clicks through and can find the product. We've been talking about this all day. But it might be important for the brand that their key style is at the top, and that might not align, but we have to find the balance. And your e-com merchandiser might not know what ads you're running, so it's important that they also see that, and it's really clear why that's important at that time. So it's kind of everyone's job to come together and educate each other, because they might also have other reasons why that product needs to be somewhere, or yeah.
I'm going to shift gears for a second to the audience. I want everyone to close their eyes. I'm taking notes from yesterday. Close your eyes. All right, you've just seen the most gorgeous dress on Facebook. It's a Meta ad. You click through and you're like, hell yeah, this is the dress I'm going to wear to my best friend's wedding. You get to page 1, can't find it. Page 2 of the collection, can't find it. You're on page 3. You're at the bottom of the collection. You found it. You click through and then you realise it's out of stock. Are you as pissed off as I was this morning? Yeah? How does that relay internally within your teams? Do you guys actually speak to your customer experience team, and how does that align to your paid team, that journey?
Yeah, well, since it's kind of like my day-to-day, right? So I'm always if I know that there is a piece of creative that is our number one and it's driving everything, I'm is that still in stock? Is that still in stock? Tell me when it's out of stock. How many sizes are left? I need to know, because I need to find the next best thing for that. But again, that's coming together and talking about it, and sometimes that's also the hardest part.
I agree. The landing page your customer goes to from an ad, an organic social post, an email is ultimately the responsibility lands with the person who has built that channel or that ad. So it's on the paid or e-com team to say, this is what we're doing, these are the ads that are live, and that's their job to ensure that journey, and the metrics will show you if that journey's ended somewhere where it's not supposed to. This is maybe a controversial thing to say, but every business I've worked in, no one wants to talk to customer experience or customer care. I just feel like maybe it's because everyone's afraid to listen to the negative Nancys, or they want to run away from the problems, but I feel that the customer experience teams, customer care teams on the front line are at the coalface of an online experience. We can't see that customer coming in, and we don't know what she's saying. There's not even friction, it's just a lack of maybe each other understanding what each other needs. So the way we've got around that is, first and foremost, build the relationship, invite them into the teams. They should be an omni-channel experience, and they should be across the plan. They should know what you're doing, why you're doing it. And I said to the girls this morning, how many members of your online or your customer care team know what budget you're aiming for? No one actually brings them involved in the conversation. It's just a last minute, do they know we've got a promotion launching? Better tell them. And I feel like if if they're quiet on the other end, there's a problem. You should be getting that feedback. And I always say to them, if you get 2 customers saying something, you come to me and you tell me. That's 2 people that could have spent $900, because these things snowball, and if they're ignored and that open communication is not, so it's not even rocket science to me. It's not even down to a tool. Yes, you can use AI, buzzword, whatever else to do that. And you should be using your tools to exclude SKUs and sizing out of that, so that you don't see that. If something, there are tools that enable you to do that. So, I think there's partly the relationship, partly the tech. It's really easy, from my opinion. But we're also saying this morning that I hate also breaking best practice, that sometimes the ad that could be generating the clicks, the new customers, and the return on ad spend might not be the product that's featured in that ad. So that's a frustrating experience for you, and maybe I'm probably contradicting myself here, maybe the margin's not great on that anymore, but if you can understand that customer's clicking on that and there's high intent and he is buying something else, then there's potentially a place for it. But there's a trade-off in that experience at what point you pull it. Yeah. If there's no stock and they can't get it, you're trying to make money. So it's a poor brand experience and a poor conversion experience.
Yeah, so we have...
I think our mic's... No, back on.
That's all right.
Georgie's got a great example.
One of our key examples is a red bikini will always get someone through the door, and it's usually the top ROAS ad, but they're not buying the red bikini, they're buying the black bikini. So I'm always like, can we shoot both? Because I do need both, but I know the red one's probably going to stop you in your feed and go, oh, wow, that looks great. But it's kind of hard to pull off a red bikini.
Yeah. Like you think you're going to look good in a red bikini, but you're not always going to look good in
No.
a red bikini.
Can we talk about some real-world examples of where you have gotten some your customer experience insight back from the team, and you've improved your website? That's therefore improved your ads.
Yeah, we've at GHD we've had a really great example of that recently, really tapping into that customer feedback from our CX team and using that from an organic search perspective to optimize our product listing pages. So when we released the FAQ schema on our PLPs, what we looked at is, okay, what are we actually really trying to address here, not just from an organic search perspective, but how can we help that customer and help them, guide them on that decision to focus them and answer their questions. So we had taken on board that customer service feedback and then built that into our FAQ schema to immediately address their concerns, hoping that would also reduce some friction from our customer service team.
That's amazing. Have you seen an improvement in your conversion rate just yet?
Great question, Joss. Have we seen an... I think I'm getting a nod. Yes, we have.
It wasn't a no.
Any other examples?
Very recent adjustment.
That's good. Well, I've got one. Size guide. Who here has shopped from a brand that has a very different size guide, and so you've had to do massive returns for that brand? Show hands. Anyone? Size guides? Like, it seems to be a trend at the moment that brands like to have really unique size guides, which I think is fine, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, if you educate your customer on how to measure yourself for that brand.
Yeah, like we have obviously our multi-brand sites, and then that's a lot like sometimes our size guides can get really big and you're trying to figure it out, because we've got, like, with SDS we've got footwear, we've got swimwear, we've got like wetsuits and snowsuits, and at a certain point the size guides get really confusing, and we've got different brands with different sizing.
Markets, US sizing, AU sizing.
Please localize it to the markets. We did that for a bridal brand that I worked with, predominantly in the US, and we launched a size guide with centimeters. It doesn't really work well for the US, that work in inches.
How many fashion brands are in the room, actually? Have you all got universal? Keep your hand up if you've got universal sizing. All right, nice. Okay, I'll give you a story. The reason I brought this one up is because someone I audited their website recently, they had a 50% increase in their returns in the last 3 months. And I asked them, okay, I don't think you actually have an ad issue. I think there's something happening within your website. And it was their size guide. They'd changed their sizing completely. And this is a pet industry. You're measuring for collars and things like that. And they were losing like $20,000 in revenue a month just from returns. So, size guide. Going for time. I've got a little bit of extra time. I was going to kind of throw it to the room. Does anyone have any questions? No one has any questions? Yes? I want to throw it. I'm coming down. Hello, kind sir.
I'm curious how many different ad creatives are you guys testing when you put out an ad?
That's a great question. Let's start with Georgie because she has so many brands.
That is a question I deal with all the time. And the thing is that there is like no answer, because how big is your budget and where are you putting it? So I do like you kind of get used to it, like how big's your audience, how big's your budget, and what are you trying to do? But you obviously need to have a few different versions. One of my favorite things to do is start small and scale up. So once I find something that works, I want to change it. I might want to add something in, and I'm not doing that every day. Like I need to let it learn, and I need to see what's winning and what's losing. But there's no like, for X do X, for X do X. Like if someone comes to me and says, how much money do you need for a brand awareness campaign? And I'll say, okay, how long are we going to run it? And how many pieces of creative do you have? And they're like, oh, what do I need to do? And I'm like, I think we need to sit down and have a chat. Like, let's work it out together, because it's not a cookie cutter approach.
I think we found that very question quite frustrating, if I'm honest, because we kept asking that question to everybody we knew, like internally, externally, agencies, Meta, everybody. And everyone's like, oh, just the more the better, you unlock more audiences, da, 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 da. But there is no straight answer, because a live example of that is we have something called a style deck, all products on one page in one document we go through, and we were like, okay, let's just do 5 ads per product. 5. Okay, where do the 5 come from? We don't have the resource, we don't have the content, we don't have the margin expectations that are the same for every single product. That's what pioneered the whole product lab thing going through, which does deserve more creative, because common sense says more creatives, potentially more audiences, new audiences, more sales. It hasn't necessarily played out like that, and I hate to say the word, but it is in the diversity of content for us. And then that is an example how we've worked back with our customer care team and looked at different channels. If something's selling well on another channel, do we have an ad running for it? If we do, is it working? Emulate a similar top performing ad, regenerate that creative, test and learn that way. I don't necessarily feel like more is more. We haven't experienced that. And sometimes if you're changing your campaigns in Meta, for example, so frequently, there are times in my career where we've spent 45% of our budget in learning phase because we've had too many ads and just tried to feed back so many learnings. And no one wants to sit in a boardroom and say, we spent $80 on that and we got 5 clicks. Like, it's not worth the time. So it's a really good question, and we're always constantly chasing it, I think. But it's, I said to my team at the beginning, this shows my leadership, I'm a bit crazy sometimes, I said, just kind of cross your eyes and be like, can Meta reads that as woman with brown hair, white shirt, woman with brown hair, white shirt, woman with brown hair, white shirt? If you're seeing the same silhouette and the same type of content by doing your cross-eyed analogy, we didn't actually physically do it, but that's what Meta's reading. So it's just about adding different elements into the mix and different creative into the mix.
I'm going to throw it back to customer experience and aligning to your paid strategy. What is the best piece of advice that you could give to every business owner here to go home and do on their brand today? And I'm going to throw this to you, Sam.
I'm a fan of a workshop and I love mapping things out. My advice would be get your customer care, your online, your retail, your digital, however small or big your teams are, your key channels in the same room, and get coloured post-it notes, or if you want to do it, use Lucid, whatever else, a digital channel, and go through and what happens when someone lands on your site. Do they get the pop-up? Do they get the welcome code? In store, is AP21 sending that email? What does the email header look like? What's in the copy? Is it the wrong? Are the social, end to end? So many brands offer a welcome discount online and then not in store. Just so many small points. So get your whole team in there and then literally circle the pain points and get all your teams to feed in. You'll find that customer care say, I get loads of messages about that. I just tell them to do this. And it's like, well, no, we don't want that friction. And so mapping it out and doing that every quarter and keeping everybody accountable for that is my biggest piece of advice, because you will get at least one key takeaway from that per team, probably.
I love that. I say the same thing to every brand that I audit their website. Put yourself in your customer's shoes and try and buy your product.
Or if you have a husband who's a tradie who has
Yes.
no idea what I'm doing,
Even better.
just get his fat fingers to go through and be like, I thought I could click there. I thought I could do this. Or your mum in the UK who also has no idea what she's doing. Yeah. But it's sometimes we're so close to everything. Take a step back. If you're not selling knitwear, you're probably not talking. It's not on your homepage. Like you can't underestimate basic trading principles. Yeah. And it's often those people who are at the, as I said, the cold face in customer care and retail, that they're the ones that can give you that value and that insight. So I myself, we go back to the floor every now and again. We go into the retail store. We see the customers. We see what she's picking up. We see what she's putting down. We talk to them. Just keep talking and have that. But most importantly, map it. Don't just have conversations for the sake of it. Map it and be accountable for each team to own something.
And do that on mobile too. Like I think that's the most tricky thing, right? You sit in trade meetings, you bring the website up, you're talking with your teams, you're looking at it on desktop. Actually, get your phone out, have a look at that on mobile device, because that's how we all behave. It's how we all shop. But I think so often that's overlooked. And even when you do UAT, you've released something, a new web dev. If you're not testing that on mobile first, where most of your customers are shopping, I feel like you're missing a very big piece of the puzzle.
100%. I see the sign up pop up covering the add to cart button so many times.
Every time. Yep. My takeaway for this, I feel like it's for this year, and especially because we come to these events and we learn so much and then we try and take it all. But I really just want to take everything back to basics. Like we've said it a few times, like go back to what you learn, your customer journey. Like there's so many buzzwords, but like actually what matters, what's important, like can the customer buy your product, instead of being like, we need to implement 500 new things. Like let's make sure we have this working right now, and then we'll see where we can go next. Like go back.
100%. I can guarantee every brand owner in this room could make more money today if they just optimize their website without spending a single dollar on more ads or channel sprawl. As a little bit of a last takeaway, what's one piece of advice or knowledge nugget that you'd like to share with the crowd?
I think just keep it simple. I feel like there's a lot of learnings. We've all heard the word AI a million times. I think I'm a bit sick of it by this point, if I'm honest. But I think ultimately everything you're doing is for a customer. So just take that before you send an EDM, before you launch an ad, just picture yourself as a customer. And is that resonating with them, and why are you doing it? I think there's a lot of jargon, there's a lot of complexity, but keeping it simple, I think, to your point, is just something we all need to step back and actually just spend that time in.
Yeah, and just give something a try. That's also a big thing. Like once you know you got it right, jumping into new platforms and things like that, like you'll learn from it even if it doesn't work. Like I've heard people say fail forward like 1,000 times this week, but it is kind of true. Like you don't know something doesn't work until you try it. So it's not really going to harm you. Like just test it a little bit. Yeah.
I would say learn your product unit economics. Understand what you are actually selling. Understand what that value is to your channel and to the business. Because if you can't explain that at whatever level, even if you were an intern, well not an intern maybe, but a coordinator and above, you need to understand what, if you do or do not hit budget, how you're going to do that, and how some other influences, returns rate, shipping, what that actually does. And I don't think anyone's too junior or senior to really go back to that baseline. Walk through the P&L with your manager, go to the finance team, ask the silly questions, and then go back to your department and say, how do I actually deploy that to a product level strategy, and what tools do I need to really understand how to move the dial? Because it does come down to those basics to understand how you shift it.
100%. I'll finish it off with know your numbers. There's a tool on our website. Ask Chris. Chris, put your hand up. If you want it, it's free. You can work out how to work out your numbers. How much can you spend to acquire a customer? And 2, optimize your website, which is actually my segue. I'm about to go audit websites for the next hour and a half. So if anyone wants an audit of their website and wants some opportunity to improve their conversion rate without spending more on ads, catch you on the stage over there. So thank you very much. That's all we have time for. Big round of applause.